Celtics Talk podcast is presented by 24autogroup.com. New England gets more at 24.
How'd that last shot feel when you got in your hands?
It felt good. I mean, my legs are a little heavy, but got to make a play for my team at the end. So,
Take us through the last play.
last play, catch, get to a spot, go up. Got to make a play for your team at the end. Had some opportunities, didn't convert, but still got some room to grow. That's what the regular season is for, so we get better.
What's up, everybody?
Hello, Chris.
What's up, Giles?
How you doing?
How we feeling?
Okay.
Yeah.
Feeling okay. Would have been nice to see that shot by Jaylen Brown go down at the very end there, but I'm, if anything, a little disappointed that these two teams won't play each other again unless it's in the postseason, and that'll be in May.
Well, and it's funny you should say that. We're going to jump right in. Celtics lose a one-point game in Detroit. Fourth meeting with this team. Each one interesting in their own way. Maybe none more than this one, though. It had a little bit of everything from the flare-up with Jaylen Brown and beef stew in the first quarter to the Celtics being super sloppy but a lot more focus in the second half. Hanging in there. Teams felt like they traded leads the entire fourth quarter, and then the Pistons get to the finish line of all heroes, Tobias Harris.
Unbelievable
Tobias Harris game. The man who I've spent a large portion of my career slandering about the way he'll have a great first half and then absolutely disappear in the fourth quarter. That is Philadelphia Tobias Harris. And in a building full of 76er fans, it's kind of hilarious when Tobias Harris has a good game. But
kind of, yeah. I mean, the first three was funny. The second three was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
the corner three was the one. Come on.
I mean, and look, I spent the whole night saying, if the Pistons just had a little bit more shooting, they'll be even more dangerous in the postseason. And then Tobias Harris decides to catch fire, and even Duncan Robinson had a couple of threes in the fourth. So, but as you said, Jaylen Brown gets a look, about as good of a look as the Celtics have drawn up this season in the final sequence. Just a little too strong with it, in part because I think he was so gassed from carrying the team down the stretch that he put a little extra oomph on it. Somehow the ball, every angle I watched it from, even though I know what happens, I thought for sure it was going to bounce in, and he did not get the shooter's bounce on a night where he was dominant. But I think your overall sentiment is correct. Normally I walk away from this and I'm like, man, missed opportunities here, the sloppiness in the first half. No, this was super fun. This was a playoff-esque game. It did have some lulls in there where you're like, ugh.
Yes, it did.
But if you were watching on DVR, this thing would be even better because you just fast forward through those. And then the fourth quarter entirety of it was, just really fun, physical basketball. The refs got in the way at various portions, some challenge stuff that bogged it down. But, I mean, that end sequence was really, really fun. And my headline is see in May. Because I do believe that over the course of these four games, the Celtics and Pistons have acquitted themselves well as the two best teams in the Eastern Conference, especially as you watch the Knicks spiral out of control. Especially as, I'm still not just sold on the Raptors of the world. And there's a long way to go. There's 40 more games for this thing to shake itself out. But I feel pretty confident that when the Celtics add Jayson Tatum, whatever the Pistons do, it might look a little bit different by the time we get around to it. But in my mind, no reason we shouldn't be seeing a 1-2 matchup, and it would be a highly entertaining 1-2 matchup.
It would. I think that all four games between these two teams, I think if you think back to the first one, that one might have been the most surprising because the Celtics weren't playing well at that point early in the season, and they still found a way to kind of be right into it. But
started Ugo, so you knew it was going
to be. Yeah, and that was one of those games where you were worried about the rebounding. That was one of the biggest issues for them at that point. Tonight, the issues were turnovers and giving up fast break points. That's kind of just what it boils down to for me. That's the reason they do not win this game. They shot their way back into it. Sam Hauser had a couple of huge threes. Peyton Pritchard shot the ball well as well from three. Those two guys combined it for 33 points. So you got what you needed from them. Derrick White, meanwhile, struggled. But
all right, we'll hold that thought on Derrick White.
Yeah, I want to go back to the turnovers.
So that's your headline.
Turnovers and fast break points.
Yep.
Detroit is young and quick and
Frisky.
physical and handsy, like all those things.
Have we used the term handsy on air more than we have in like the last? One, teams are been super handsy with the Celtics, but I just love the term.
Yeah, I guess I almost maybe I shouldn't even use handsy in this situation. They had 9 steals and 9 blocks, but I feel like there were plenty of fouls called. It's not like they were playing so physical that those fouls weren't being called.
Right.
If anything, like the way it was being officiated was almost too tight. It felt.
Tighter than normal, and I would say we've seen opponents get handsy with the Celtics, and refs will allow it depending on your reputation. Like you think back to the Nuggets, super physical defense, they get away with more than most. You know, you could say maybe San Antonio. They're not as physical, but they have Wemby, so it looks a little different. I thought tonight there were certainly instances where there was some tussling, some wrestling, and you're right. The Celtics they definitely felt the physicality and speed of the Pistons and what they can do defensively.
Yeah. I think that the one play that really stood out to me was the Cade Cunningham lob to Jalen Duren, and then moments later, Jalen Duren had the offensive rebound, tip slam, and the facial reaction on the replay. He presents a bit of a problem for them. You know, Luka Garza I thought had a pretty good game offensively, but
after he had 4 fouls in like 3 minutes.
Well, that's a really tough matchup for him. Jalen Duren is a tough matchup for him.
Luka Garza is much more attached to the ground than Jalen Duren, who it's so funny because Cade Cunningham has 13 assists in this game.
14. Don't shortchange
14.
him.
I'm sorry.
Unless they took one away.
Celtics had 13, had more. No, I think it did. But what a luxury. Sometimes you say this about a quarterback, but if you get into trouble, just throw it at the rim.
Yeah.
Like Duren's up there somewhere. He'll just go get it and throw it down. It's kind of it's quite the luxury to have that. But you're right. So Joe was talking about in the postgame where he said, I'll have to go back and watch, check the number of live ball turnovers. And so the Celtic thing has always been, and this is from Brad to Doc, like through the years, it's if you're going to have a turnover, throw it into the third row, because then at least you can set your defense and make them work. Tonight, 9 live ball turnovers of the 14 giveaways, and which is an extremely high percentage for the Celtics. And they got burnt by it because they got a ton of points off of that. There was a point, I think at some point in the first half, it was accounted for at least a quarter of their points. And, you're just not going to survive that when it's 2 very good teams, when there's going to be, you knew the Celtics offense wasn't going to be flowing like it was in Atlanta. This was going to be a grind, and you just can't spot a team that many points.
No, but and the Celtics did get off to a pretty good start in this game, right? I think they were up 16-8 early.
Made 5 of their first 6 shots.
So they were off to a good start, but the way Detroit played and going into the locker room with an 8-point lead, I thought that in general the Celtics had a good response at the beginning of the third quarter before things kind of bogged down again. But, Detroit goes up 10. Hauser 3, I think Pritchard had a 3, and then Hauser 3. It was like a quick 9-0 run, and they're right back in the game, and it was on from there. So they did fight their way back into it because you kind of
and much better in the second half in terms of matching the physicality and taking care of the basketball. But you're right, like they needed somebody other than Jaylen Brown to give some offense, and Hauser in that stretch was fantastic. Pritchard finally kind of got himself going, but you did bring it up earlier.
Yeah,
where are you at with Derrick?
Derrick White struggled in this game, and the tech free throw I think was just like. I don't want to say like that was the point where it's like I don't think he's probably going to be the guy to knock down the fourth quarter 3 for you here tonight. It felt like if even the tech free throw is not going down, the JB Bickerstaff that was like 2 minutes into the fourth quarter. We've seen this a couple times now.
I was most jarred that he misses the tech free throw. And then he had like one more decent look at a 3, missed it. Then Duncan Robinson came down and hit a 3 over him, which was like he was scrambling with help. But then the next trip down, Derrick was hesitant. He was like, he got a decent look. And he's pretty good about just being oblivious if it's not his night and being confident. And that was one of the first times in this stretch where I just thought he was hesitant. And that's, I get it. You got to have some bit of self-awareness out there especially when it's not your night. And I don't want to crush him too much because I mean, the rebounding, the assists, the blocks. He had other ways that he impacted the game, but you undeniably, especially against a team like this, and with the load that Jaylen Brown was shouldering offensively, they needed somebody else to be a consistent threat or at least get himself going for a quarter. And Derrick could just never get it going. He has, I would say, in every season he has been in Boston and beyond the year he got traded here, he's always had a little bit of a January swoon. It's actually probably cost him an All-Star appearance, at least 2 years ago, maybe even like a year ago. Certainly, I sometimes laugh because people would bring him up as an All-Star candidate this year, and even though he's one of the out of the 150 qualifiers, he's among 146th in field goal percentage. Sometimes that happens when you're just relying on the three as much as he has. But yeah, it's just a weird. It feels like this one has persisted maybe a little bit more. There have been instances where we're like, oh, okay, he's coming out of the woods, and then a night like this, 1 for 11, right back in it.
There were just a couple, I think, early in the game too. It felt like maybe he forced a little bit, and so I don't know if forcing those, so now you're not seeing it go in, kind of just impacts things. But you go back to the start of the season when there was kind of that struggle right out of the gate that lasted a little while. So I don't think this has lasting effects. And despite the fact that he went 1 for 11, they were a few inches away from winning the game anyways. But yeah, it is very difficult to beat a team as good as Detroit in Detroit when you're not getting more than 4 points from Derrick White.
Do I think we're going to have any playoff game, let's say these two teams do see each other, do I think you're going to have a game where Tobias Harris can't miss in the fourth quarter and Derrick White cannot, hit anything? No. I think this is a little bit of an outlier, and yet it's a little surprising that he's just kind of going through it. And, again, the one thing that every time I say, he's got to kind of, rev it up a little bit, when Jayson Tatum is back on the court, everything gets a lot easier for everybody. It's going to take shots away from in some instances, but I do think all of a sudden, all that attention that now Jaylen and Jayson are getting, Derrick's going to breathe a little bit more. He's going to get more clean looks. He can pick spots a little bit more judiciously. Tonight just felt like one of those nights where, we always see him do the head shake thing and just didn't have it. And it happens. It's too bad because I'm sure if the Celtics had one they wanted to get on this trip, you want to get them all. But going against Detroit, a chance to show against the number one team in the Eastern Conference, they'll look back and they'll kick themselves about some of the miscues along the way.
Yeah, I guess, yes, I agree with that. But I'll say this as well. Detroit goes 3-1 against them in the season series, but I don't feel like it's a bad matchup in the postseason. I don't feel like you go into that series thinking how are you gonna find a way to beat Detroit. These games were as competitive as they were, and you brought up the Celtics should be adding a superstar player before May, so it'll be different no matter what. By the way, what did you think of him working out shoot around?
Interesting. It's so funny. I don't know. I never know why they pick certain days and. I think there was one where when he first posted his first workout, there was a plan to stash that video a little longer, and then it went out and then he was just let's get it out there. I think there's just days that he just wants to remind you, hey, I'm here. I'll be back there soon-ish. And I don't know, maybe knowing that a lot of eyes on the NBA today and MLK Day, always kind of a big day in the NBA, or maybe knowing that the game was on NBC tonight. I don't know. I never know player motivations. I think there's a balance, right? I think he wants to kind of ramp up out of sight, and I think I keep telling you, I think we're going to be surprised, when it just kind of goes to another gear. But there's moments whether he's just really enthused about the progress and kind of wants to remind us. But yeah, it was you don't see there hasn't been a lot of video from Celtics shoot around this year because there's usually not a whole lot of interest going on. This one, when Jayson Tatum's throwing down emphatic dunks, was spicy day up in Detroit.
Let me ask you this, because and again, we're still a little ways away.
Little ways.
it would seem. What do you think? How do you think this plays out? Do you think that there's, well, because he's on every single road trip anyway, so it's not just like, oh, he's going to travel with the team, that he always does. So how much heads up, I guess, is what I'm trying to get. Is there going to be before Jayson Tatum's playing? Is it going to be, all of a sudden the injury report comes out and then he's questionable?
Yep. And that would be my guess, is that they'll just get to a point. You're supposed to see some sort of ramp up. Like when guys are coming back from a long injury, I think we're supposed to be able to talk to them 2 weeks before they're back on the court. Now, maybe the Celtics will do that. Maybe they'll try them out at some point and sort of signal. But like most of the time, it just doesn't happen. Sometimes it just goes. They check some final box in terms of strength, or like the medical staff clears them, and all of a sudden, just one day, I don't know if he'll go to. I don't even think he'll go to doubtful. I think it's just one day he'll pop up and it'll be like questionable, and then available. And because you want that moment too, like that. Oh, bleep. He's actually back tonight. The one thing I will tell you is the unique situation here is the Celtics come out of the All-Star break, which I think is, and understandably so, everyone wants to say, like, oh, if you can give them that extra time, get through the All-Star break, maybe right coming out of that is when you turn him loose. He has been very open and honest that he wants the first game to be a home game. Celtics open up on the road coming out of the All-Star break. And I think there's one other home game at the end of the month, and I don't remember it being a very endearing matchup. So now you're pushing into March, which I do think was his original timeline, but I think he's made so much progress that there's at least the idea of, can he be ready for February? And again, I think there's still some boxes to check. I'm not even sure they know in their mind if they've started circling dates or not. But there are some intriguing dates in February that would be more exciting than others, especially if the football team in New England continues on its path.
And I'll just say this, like I brought this up out of left field because I know we're still talking about the Celtics and the Pistons game, but I had to ask the question because we're only 11 days away from February.
Yep.
So I just kind of wanted to prepare myself, have other people be prepared on how this kind of might roll out, if there is even a rollout, or if it's just like...
I mean, just go through the schedule. I mean, I go back to it. I'd love to tell you, and we don't know because it all happens so much behind the scenes. Like we're left to, it's always to me as like a detective game. You're just trying to get clues. You're trying to like glean insight from some people who might know better than others, and no one over there talks about anything. That's why we never hear anything about trades. Like Brad doesn't come out and say, hey, here's what we're doing. You wake up one day and all of a sudden Romeo Langford's on his way to San Antonio, and the Celtics have a generational talent coming back. Who had one bad shooting night tonight. But I do think, I think the bottom line for me has been he's worked his behind off to put himself in position so that when that calendar gets to February, it becomes an even bigger talking point. And so we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay.
It's that it should always be on nights like this when you're like, oh man, I really wish they could have got to the finish line. Just a reminder, he's gonna be out there soon. A lot of what ails them in these minutes will be shored up by the fact that Jayson Tatum's back out there. And I don't know how much he'll play. He might make this big fancy return and then the next day he doesn't play. Or maybe they won't, or maybe Drew Smith in Miami plays every game, including back-to-back, which is crazy. But we'll see how they trade. They pay a lot of people over there big money to plan these things out and make sure guys stay healthy, and they're not gonna get overly frisky with Jayson Tatum, considering how much of a grind the last 8 months, 9 months has been having to wait for him to be back on the basketball court. But yeah, I don't know. Like if put it this way, if you're a Celtics season ticket holder, giving away your tickets away for gifts in the month of February, March, or whatever, just tread cautiously.
Interesting.
Pick your spot.
Okay.
See what you want to do. Having a vehicle you can rely on, that's important. That's why you can rely on 24 Auto Group. They will treat you like family. And that's because they are family owned and operated. They're honest, easy to work with, and they just get it. Whether you're looking for something sporty, something luxurious, or just a solid everyday ride, 24 Auto Group always comes through. With 9 brands and 11 locations across New England, there's something for everyone. And here's the best part. They've got the knack to save you more on a new or pre-owned vehicle, and the knack to pay you more for your trade, up to $2,400 over book value. You can even drive home with just $24 down. So if you want the best deal without the runaround, go see my guys at 24 Auto Group, because you always get more at 24. Online at 24autogroup.com.
Going back and then circling this all back to this game.
Sure.
Because the Celtics have kind of struggled in these clutch games. They're now 9-12 in clutch games, I think it is. Or did I say 9-13?
9-13.
9-13. They were 9-12. And you just wonder, does that start to look different? Does that change a little bit if you get a guy like that back?
But even if it doesn't, the one thing I always caution, because I overreacted this during the 21-22 season, and maybe again, but I think it flipped for 23-24. 21-22, they had some of the worst clutch numbers in the league. Now, that was a weird year, like cycled through a lot of bodies, still cut like the post-COVID stuff.
Yep.
Rob got healthy in the second half of the year. They kind of turned it up a little bit. One thing I learned that year was that clutch. Yeah, I know that's amazing that I shoehorned it in again. The clutch numbers historically in the regular season have absolutely zero bearing on what happens in the postseason.
Right. No, I don't equate it to that anyways. But it's more
I do.
Do you?
Because the nerd in me says, like, we have 82 games of data that says they're not good in those moments.
Yeah, well.
And yet, there's something about this team where they got to the playoffs that year and they were like, no, we're just going to win every close game possible.
Well, but then, the year that they won the title, they also just, crush teams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's different ways to do it. But I thought you made a good point on the post-game show. That was, it would have been nice for them to kind of have one of those wins, like that game-winning shot at the buzzer.
It's the one thing that's probably been missing from this season. They've had a lot of fun wins. They've had comebacks. They've had, averting disaster, but they don't have that non-Tatum hit-a-game winner.
Yep.
Or at least, like a walk-off fashion. And, Abby got herself out to Detroit. I was hoping she'd get, the Jaylen water bath while she's doing the interview and stuff like that. But it'll have to wait for another day. Maybe it'll happen against the Pacers when we play them for the 27th time.
Well, that will be the fourth and final time. Isn't it weird? So now they played the Pistons 4 times. You're like, okay, I could do more of that. They're going to play the Pacers for the 4th time on Wednesday. And you're like, isn't this the 12th time they've played?
It's so unfair. And yet... And look, the last matchup with the Pacers was super fun, Well, besides for Joe Manzula and illegal screens, but that game itself was entertaining to the finish line, and Siakam making a winner. And
well, you remember the first one between the two was the comeback win.
Yeah, so that's right.
I believe that was the first one.
I think so.
And then the second one, the Celtics blew them out.
Blew them out. It's again, this is a different Indiana team. Celtics cannot look past anybody. You are going to have this emotional thing where you go from playing the best team in the East to now playing the worst team in the East, and you just have to get yourself going. But hopefully the illegal screen is fresh in mind, and hopefully Siakam doesn't do crazy Siakam stuff.
I still don't understand how the Pacers are the worst team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, you are what your record says you are. I was told.
That's fair.
So,
but okay,
all right. This was a good pod.
Was it?
It was I always worry after the losses about how we're gonna get through them.
It's weird though, because it just, to me, it felt like if they won this game, in a sense, they kind of would have stolen this one from Detroit. I thought that by and large, Detroit made more plays down the stretch. Celtics still found a way to have a chance to win it in the end. So
I think the only thing I'll walk away, I'll feel bad because Jaylen had a great game. Took on the challenge of defending Cade. This could have been one of those nights where we walk out and said, man, Jaylen Brown yet again on a big stage against an elite opponent. And that matters when you get to, your nitpicking. And again, I don't think Cade or Jaylen are going to factor into the top 2, depending on, who hits game plays marks. But, if you're looking for a tiebreaker and you kind of go back to head-to-head and you sometimes look at, how they played against each other, this would have been a nice feather in Jaylen's MVP cap.
And just to show the growth of Cade on the other side, for a night where he went 4 of 17. 4 of 17 from the field. He still managed to get to 16 points and had the 14 assists.
It's crazy.
So
it's what good players do. They find
a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Find a way to put up numbers even when they don't have it.
sometimes it's like finding a way to make a good pod even when the team loses. We're elite at what we do. I need everybody to go like, go subscribe, go check us out on the YouTube page. We'll be back with you on Wednesday night here on the Celtics Talk Podcast.
Have a good